Live on ETV as well as ENCA DSTV channel 403. Great to be in your company. Where have you been? We've got lots to get through with each other between now and 9 o'clock. I am still in conversation with our analyst, Mighti, looking into some of these current affairs stories making headlines for this week, including that of Justice Correctional Services Minister Ronald Lamola mentioning that South Africa had to register its displeasure with the UAE after it's denied its extradition request for the Guptas. The big question here, Jamie, is that what is likely to happen here? Because again, mixed messages that we've been receiving. The United Arab Emirates has actually refuted any claims that they have not been forward with information when it comes to being able to extradite the Gupta family. In fact, they use a notion saying there was a piece of documentation, the arrest warrant in itself, that was missing, and that apparently that documentation was what could not assist in the UAE actually extraditing the Guptas. What's your take on that?
Well, it's very clear that the paperwork was faulty, right? The paperwork was faulty, the case was not strong. And if you even look domestically what has happened, one of the things that has happened domestically is that there's been this case, the New Lane case, which was a corruption case looking at an amount of money of about 25 million, which was supposed to have been stolen by Gupta associates, etc. And the judge in that case said that the prosecution had tampered with the evidence, they had done a shoddy investigation, and they were relying on the fact that they could ask questions within the trial to fix their lack of evidence. And you cannot do that. You cannot try to rectify the issues in your evidentiary bundle through prosecution processes in and of themselves. And that case was then dismissed and those people walked. And it was an indictment on the Gupta leaks. It was an indictment on the quality of evidence that currently exists, and also put a question mark on the State Capture Commission and whether or not we're going to be able to get convictions on all of the things that happened there after having spent 1 billion rands and a lot of time following through that process. So when you then look at the UAE issue in and of itself, it seems to be in alignment with that pattern to say there isn't enough for other countries to be able to effect these kind of things because they have to abide by international law and their own domestic standards. And the United Arab Emirates was very clear that you didn't meet the criteria, and you also tried to appeal, and everything has failed. It's closed. There's no more path to get these guys from the UAE, and more likely from the international community, because the information that has been submitted has been insufficient to effect an interdict. So even though there is communication that is trying to spin the narratives, trying to take the focus away from the local government back to the UAE, back to the
saying that they are going
players.
to be appealing that decision and that they're working hand in hand. They are also surprised they were not informed by the denial of extradition. They only found out when they had to check in with the ambassadorship. That all was almost to say, we did everything right. It's them.
Beyond the noise, beyond the communications, this thing is closed. The Guptas are not coming here.
No, don't say things like that, Jamie. What are you saying? Are you
if the Guptas
unequivocally believe that they're not going to come back?
If they come by themselves to clear their names, that's the only way that you're going to get them into South Africa. They're not going to come by virtue of extradition. It's not going to happen. There's not enough of a case right now to get that. And even that New Lane judgment shows that it's going to be very difficult to go with the Gupta leaks and say, here is the evidence of the corruption, arrest these guys. The evidence is not sufficient right now, and the case has not been built. So it leads us to have a conversation about the quality of prosecutions, the quality of our investigations, the evidence levels that we need to meet so that we understand where are the gaps. And it's not just an international law issue. If you look at domestic cases, we're still trying to find who killed AKA. We're still trying to know who killed Senzo. And as we examine the evidence that is before us, we often find that some of the policing work was insufficient, some of the follow-up investigation was insufficient, some of the prosecutorial paperwork was not handled in a way that is consistent with getting a conviction. So that's where things are right now. And we sometimes have to be very blunt and honest and say that ship has sailed, and then have conversations about how to fix things for the next time this kind of a thing happens. Because even if the Guptas are gone, corruption is still happening. right? Right now, we're still seeing scandals. We're still seeing people getting killed as a result of them trying to unravel corruption.
Yeah.
The question then becomes, how can we improve the NPA so that we can actually be able to prosecute people like this in the future?
Well, let's talk very quickly about what's currently happening in the Gauteng province. We know that about 3,000 or so crime prevention wardens have been deployed within the province to help prevent crime, or to be almost a supplement to already existing crime infrastructure. There they are at the back of us. Obviously, there have been mixed reactions about this. On one side, it's a positive note because we're putting people to work, which is always a good thing, taking down the unemployment rate. But on the other side of it, it's also about the mandate of these deployees. Do they have enough power, training, skills to be able to fight crime and fight crime quite effectively, deployed in their various communities? But we all know in this country that criminals have become braver, criminals have become more dangerous. Do these 3,000 or so crime prevention wardens have what it takes to bring down the levels of crime?
Well, you know what, I'm a bit skeptical, but I'm giving them benefit of the doubt for now. We'll have to really monitor it as the media, as analysts, to see whether or not it's bang for buck and whether there's actual impact. Because we do know that there are private security companies which have been able to secure neighborhoods on the basis of a similar model, where you put armed, security in those communities, and they're able to, visibly police the area and reduce crime. The issue that I think exists here, number one, is that there's no command center. Number two is that the period of training was very short. And number three is that these individuals have been given weapons and they'll be armed. And finally, the cost implication. Because if you recall, there was a big scandal with 431 million fumigating schools. And the defogger for a room costs 70 rands if you get it at Clicks. So how did we end up fumigating schools for 430 million, right?
These are the types of questions that we need to ask. Jamie, I have to wrap it here, but much appreciated as always for your time this morning.